Chapter 14, Haircuts and House Calls. They stayed up late that night, waiting for him to come back. Potter made 3 cups of tea, and they sat in the sitting room, each trying, and failing, to focus on a different book. Around 1 in the morning, Draco finally broke the silence. "I suppose we should leave, then." Potter looked up from the life and lies of Albus Dumbledore. "What do you mean leave?" "I mean he's the secret keeper, Potter. If he gets caught, he could give this place away." "He won't be caught," Potter said. "Do you think Ron would just walk into Diagon Alley and say, 'Hi everyone, I'm back'? Where else would he go?" Draco said coolly. "The burrow is probably watched, and so is that flat the twins have. If he tries sneaking into one of those places in the middle of the night, he could travel back to Hogwarts," Hermione said quietly from the armchair near the fireplace. She had been crying silently for half an hour, but was clearly trying to hide it. Draco hadn't said anything. Since Weasley left, she seemed smaller. Her shoulders hunched, legs pressed tightly together as if under the leg locker jinx. Even her hair looked flat, anxiously smoothed down by her hands. "After all," she said, "he was supposed to have been at the burrow with Spattergroit all this time. They never knew he was with us. Maybe now, with Tonks and Lupin on the run, he wants to be near Ginny." "Snape's there," Potter said wearily. "If that slimy git gets suspicious and does legilimency on him, or sneaks him Veritasrum," he shook his head, "Ron'll find a way to contact his dad. They'll get him back to the burrow somehow, and he can pretend he's still recovering from Spattergroit until he cools off. He'll be fine." Draco wanted to tell Potter he was being an optimistic idiot, but he didn't bother. He still heard Weasley's voice saying, "You've been busy keeping secrets with a Death Eater." The word stung more than Draco expected. Why did he care that Weasley still saw him as a Death Eater? It wasn't a surprise. And when had he ever cared what Weasley thought? Why care what anyone thought now? Crabbe's father, Crabbe himself, Weasley, or the rest of the wizarding world. He knew what he was. That should have been enough. At least, he thought he knew what he was. "Hermione's right, though," she said more firmly. "We should be prepared for the worst." "I'm not leaving," Potter said. "We've worked too hard on this place, Hermione." Hermione sighed. "Well, then we'll have to stay alert all the time. I'll repack my bag with essentials. The Horcrux, the tent, Polyjuice potion, some books. You 2 pack some robes for me to keep in it. I'll carry the bag, and if anyone operates in and Ron doesn't say it's him, we disapparate immediately to that cave we used in our old escape drills. Agreed?" Hermione hurried upstairs while Potter gathered the teacups and saucers. But once her door closed, Potter slowed. "Listen, Draco." "Yeah, thanks. For what you did for Hermione." Draco nodded shortly. Potter stared into the dying embers in the hearth. "I can't believe Ron, and I didn't see it. It's lucky you did. Well, not lucky, but..." "Yeah." He hesitated. "And for what it's worth, I don't think Ron meant what he said. He was holding the Horcrux, and hasn't been himself for weeks. We know you're not a Death Eater anymore." "Am I not?" Draco said stiffly. "I still have the mark." There was a pause. Then Potter shrugged. "All I'll say is, if you're still a Death Eater, you're doing a terrible job." Draco let out a short laugh. "Yeah, I suppose I would be." Draco expected Weasley to come back within a day, asking for forgiveness. But 2 days passed, then 3, and he never returned. It seemed to wound Hermione and Potter deeply, though they couldn't say how. They kept glancing at the empty seat at dinner, and pain crossed their faces whenever they mentioned him. Still, life was easier without his mood swings. They kept the wireless on all the time now. If Tonks, Lupin, or Weasley were captured, Draco was sure that would be a major event. They would have to evacuate headquarters immediately. But days passed with no news. The only interesting thing on the wireless was the official handing of Malfoy Manor to the Lestrange family, after a legal battle with other claimants, distant cousins who had borrowed heavily from Draco's parents. The thought of those leeches clawing at his family's legacy made Draco pace the garden, scarf wrapped tightly against the growing chill. Potter checked the Marauders map every day, but Weasley never appeared. It seemed Potter had been right. Weasley had gone home. Draco thought that, given time, Weasley's understanding of the Horcrux's importance would have brought him back from the burrow, no matter how rejected he felt. But if he wasn't captured and hadn't returned to Hogwarts, where else could he be but home? "You don't think he's trying to hunt down Hufflepuff's cup on his own?" Hermione asked one night, out of nowhere, long after Potter had gone to sleep. Draco sighed, grateful for the excuse to close his book. His eyes were tired. "You have to stop thinking about it." "I know. But if I hadn't shouted at him, he wanted you to shout at him. Maybe. But I still don't understand why he hasn't come back. Hermione stretched out on the sofa. Have you thought more about where your parents might be? Draco set his book down and ran his hands through his hair. No idea. They said London, but we hardly ever went there. Bella's family has a house there, but my parents wouldn't go near it now. They must be trying to contact other order members. The twins have that shop, and their father works at the ministry, so. He sighed. Anyway, I don't see how I could get word to them, so it doesn't matter. Of course it matters, Hermione said. All this worrying about people we can't reach is awful. Yeah, makes you reconsider the merits of the dark mark. Ha. She gave him a stern look. Draco smirked and sank into his armchair, closing his eyes. Can I ask you something? Hermione said after a moment. Depends what you're asking. I'll take that as a yes. Yes then. Do your parents have any friends who are Muggleborns? Draco opened his eyes, suddenly alert. It had been almost a month since he admitted having doubts about blood status. Some days he still felt angry at himself, embarrassed he said it out loud. He was a Malfoy after all. Maybe everyone had blood traitor thoughts sometimes, but to say them out loud, was it guilt? The pain in his shoulder, maybe? But sometimes it wasn't anger. It was something more unsettling. He found himself curious, carefully curious, about Hermione's Muggle upbringing. Then panic and shame would flood in, pushing the thoughts away. His parents would be appalled. His whole family would be appalled. He felt cautious now, skirting the topic. No, he said curtly. None. Do you think they ever did? Doubtful. They wouldn't have met any Muggleborns in Slytherin as kids, anyway. He paused. Why? Oh, well, I was just wondering. Do you think if your parents made friends with a Muggleborn, they might think any differently? Even a little bit. She added, clearly trying to sound casual. I mean, we're friends, aren't we? Draco's defensiveness faded. He could tell this was the real question she wanted to ask. She really was an awful liar. Which meant the conversation wasn't really about blood status. They were moving into safer waters. More than that, he was surprised how easy the answer was. Yeah, he said. I think so. Hermione's face brightened. I do too. He raised an eyebrow. Did you think I'd say no? Well, I don't know, she huffed, fluffing the cushion behind her head. Your mind works in strange ways. I don't exactly go around blabbing about the things we've talked about, Draco muttered. Actually, most of it I don't tell anyone at all. She smiled. It's the same with me. Funny, isn't it? Yeah. A long silence followed. He looked at her. Her eyes were closed, and the dying fire cast a soft red glow over her face. She looked vulnerable, curled up like that. A stray lock of hair shadowed her eye. Draco remembered the moment in the ministry cupboard when he woke to find her face inches from his. Her expression frantic, her hands slipping over his skin. In that instant, he felt like he'd never truly seen her before. The warm brown of her eyes, the gentle curve of her brows, the color of her always bitten lips. He looked away, frowning. His heart was beating oddly, like someone knocking on a door. As October passed, the three of them spent every day in the cottage library. The days blurred together. They woke up and spent mornings through lunch, trying to find ways to reach Umbridge. If we could just contact Kingsley, Potter often said, and get him assigned as Umbridge security detail. But that idea ended quickly when Kingsley was added to the undesirables list after a run-in with Death Eaters. I wish we could do something for the Order members on the run, Potter said fiercely. How could we? Draco asked. We don't even have our secret keeper anymore. We can't share the secret. An awkward silence filled the room, heavy with thoughts of Weasley. He knows that too, Potter muttered. I don't know what he's playing at. Hermione breathed sharply. Wait, there's another way. Draco, we still have that piece of paper with your parents' address that Ron wrote. You should give it to me right away, so I can keep it safe in my bag. The afternoons grew even more frustrating. They pored over every book that might mention Grindelwald's mark, only breaking for dinner. Many texts were so dry that reading 100 pages felt like an achievement. Draco went to bed every night with his head swimming with information about early 20th century Europe. It felt like they were running in endless circles. Every day they failed to find a breakthrough. He worried he was endangering his parents, Pansy, Goyle, and the Order members on the run, who could be forced to betray him at any moment. Then, one chilly night, Potter came into the sitting room, holding the bottle of fire whiskey they'd drunk on Hermione's birthday. I'll write you too, he said. No more reading. Excuse me? Hermione said, as if he'd just blasphemed. You heard me. He tossed a glass to her, then to Draco. Hermione caught hers quickly. Draco dropped against the dark arts. A history of wizarding power struggles, and caught his. What's this? Draco asked, narrowing his eyes. We're taking the night off, Potter said firmly. I'm going mental. I know you two are too. We'll never find anything if we lose our minds here. Besides, it's Halloween. They're feasting at Hogwarts right now. He filled his own glass, flicked his wand, and the bottle poured drinks for Draco and Hermione on its own, then set itself on the mantel with a clunk. Halloween, Hermione said with a strange, thoughtful look. It is, isn't it? I'd completely lost track of time. Draco knew this was the night the Dark Lord found this cottage 16 years ago. No wonder Potter wanted a distraction. Fine, Draco said, setting his book aside. But I'm not going trick-or-treating with you, Potter. Shame, Potter said. I was looking forward to your giant pumpkin costume. He could be a ghost, Hermione suggested. He wouldn't even need makeup. They laughed softly. Draco ignored the comments and sipped the hot, bitter fire whiskey with its sweet aftertaste. For several long minutes after their laughter faded, no one spoke. Draco tried to think of something to say, but it had been so long since they talked about anything other than Horcruxes, the war, missing people, or Dolores Umbridge and her security detail that nothing came to mind. Soon his glass was empty. When he held it out, Potter refilled it silently. Hermione broke the silence. It's not bad, is it? She said awkwardly, still nursing her first glass. Fire whiskey, I mean. I always like butterbeer better, but this is nice on a cold night. There's a bottle of fire whiskey hidden in the Slytherin common room, Draco said. It's a tradition. You can't tell anyone below 4th year where it is. If you finish the common room bottle, you have to buy the replacement. That's not bad, Potter said. Sort of fun, really, Hermione added. I wish Gryffindor had something like that. Well, we are the superior house. Draco sank back in his armchair, his hair brushing the leather. Out of stubbornness, he hadn't cut his hair since Hermione compared him to Snape, and now it was almost Pansy's length. His face tingled. The fire whiskey was hitting him fast. We did have Fred and George, Potter said, finishing his glass. They used to nick food from the kitchens whenever we won a Quidditch match. Draco snorted. That wasn't just a Gryffindor thing. We did that too. I miss it so much, Hermione sighed, tracing cracks in her leather chair. Hogwarts. Me too, Potter said. Yeah, Draco muttered. What do you wish you could do again most? Hermione asked, holding out her glass for a refill. Harry, I suppose it's Quidditch for you? I don't know, Potter said. Maybe visit Hagrid. Or well. His voice dropped, shy. There were those couple months I had with Ginny. You really miss her, don't you? Hermione said softly. Potter couldn't find words. He took another long sip. And I suppose you miss Pansy, Draco. Hermione glanced at him. Her cheeks flushed a dusky rose, probably from the drink. We broke up halfway through last year, Draco said. Oh, I didn't realize. Draco shrugged. We weren't great together. She let me get away with anything. Hermione looked amused. I would have thought you'd like that. You would you? Draco said. The words came out quieter than he meant, and for some reason, he found himself looking at her hairline. How soft her curls were there, those wisps of hair. She gave him a hesitant smile, then turned back to Potter. Draco felt an unusual flush at the back of his neck. Confused, he looked down at his drink. Yeah, anyway, he said, trying to sound confident again. She started going out with Theo Knott. They'd be good if they kept it up. Theo's a bit of an idiot sometimes, but he's actually liked her for ages. I don't even think she realized. I wonder what they're doing right now, Harry said. What, Pansy and Theo? Everyone. Neville, Seamus, Luna, Blaise Zabini, the Creevies, everyone. I don't know. Bloody. Ernie Macmillan. They all grinned. I know what Ernie Macmillan's doing, Draco said, sitting straighter and puffing out his chest. I've already drawn up my NEWT. Study schedules, of course, he said, mimicking Ernie's pompous tone. Potter puffed out his chest too, blustering. I'm already putting in 12 hours of study on weekends myself. But 12 hours is a bad day, Hermione added, giggling. I can. She laughed. Fit in 14 if I stop eating. 14 and a half, when I stop using the toilet, Potter said, and they all burst out laughing. Potter, who had been standing by the mantel, sat down cross-legged on the floor, grinning. After that, things got easier. They broke free from their dull, tense routine. Soon they were talking about other students, reliving their O, W, L, S, with Hermione teasing Draco to share his scores while Draco scoffed and Potter lay back on the woven rug laughing. They talked about broom models and holidays and troll hunters. Hermione and Potter told strange stories about Muggle primary school, and Draco listened quietly. The drink helped him ignore his usual sarcasm and bitterness about Muggle life. Eventually, the conversation shifted back to Hogwarts and the jobs they'd thought about after school. Dragon wrangling and experimental transfiguration. Outside, the night darkened and the stars seemed to shine brighter, or maybe it was just the fire whiskey. They drank glass after glass until the bottle was almost empty, their voices tired and rough. Draco felt his body relaxing, the tension from the past months unraveling. He kept glancing at Hermione, watching how her hair caught the light, hypnotic and soft. Then, halfway through a story about his first magic ceremony, Draco noticed Potter had fallen asleep on the rug. "Rude," he said. Hermione giggled. "I was wondering when you'd notice. Think we should move him?" Draco slurred, his tongue not quite keeping up with his thoughts. His brain felt like it was orbiting his head, a normal sign of being drunk. "Let him rest," Hermione said, her words drifting too. She waved her wand and Potter's glasses slid off his face and folded themselves. The rug beneath him puffed up into a makeshift mattress. "It's good he's asleep, especially since it's the anniversary." "He didn't say anything about it," Draco noted. "Welcome to Harry," Hermione said. "He never mentions things that bother him. I was shocked he even talked about Ginny." She shrugged. "Not surprising once you know him. His aunt and uncle were horrible. Really, really horrible. They barely fed him for weeks at a time. Sometimes I think he still isn't used to people caring about what he thinks or feels." Draco doubted she'd say that without the drink. But now she looked down at Potter with soft sympathy, even tenderness. That look made Draco uncomfortable. "Accio," Draco said lazily. The bottle of fire whiskey flew into his outstretched hand. He poured himself another glass. Hermione held out hers for a refill. She wasn't watching Potter anymore, which was good, he thought vaguely. Pouring took more concentration than he expected, and he realized he might be a little drunk. He filled Hermione's glass to a sparkling column and glanced up. She was watching him pour, looking like October itself, her brown hair tousled, her tan skin glowing, a bead of amber liquid on her lower lip, wearing a loose orange jumper in the firelight. Draco could tell she was drunk too. When she blinked, her eyelids moved slowly over her brown eyes, halfway to sleep. "Do you know what?" she said with a tiny hiccup. "What? Your hair really does look ridiculous." Draco sighed dramatically. "Merlin, fine. I'll let you cut it. You could have just asked." He expected her to protest that she hadn't meant that, but instead she leaned back on the sofa and laughed. Then her face grew serious. "Don't tempt me. I'll do it." Draco smiled lazily. "Yeah, do it, then Granger." Again with the Granger. She drew her wand. "Fine. Come on. Up." "God. What? Are you serious?" Draco stood, swaying a little. "You're actually going to?" "Yes. You brought it on yourself. You're welcome." She pushed him gently into the hall, her hand firm on his shoulder blade. "You don't have to manhandle me," he said. "Yes, I know, your life is a parade of endless suffering." Draco didn't look back because he realized he was grinning so widely his cheeks hurt. His head was spinning, and he felt weightless. "Look," he said, "not to question your credentials." He corrected himself. "Credentials? Honestly. But have you ever even cut anyone's hair before?" "Yes, I have. My cousin's. When I was 9. "And how'd that go?" "Air," she said. "It grew back eventually, didn't it?" They stumbled over the threshold into the downstairs bathroom, trying not to wake Potter as they stifled laughter. Hermione tapped the lamp with her wand, and a soft golden light appeared. The bathroom fixtures gleamed sparkling clean, reflecting the light. Draco sat on the edge of the clawfoot tub, very uncomfortable, and stretched his legs. He looked up at her as they set their half-full glasses on the toilet seat. She was grinning and shaking her head, sleeves pushed up awkwardly, wand in hand. "This is stupid," she said. "Just really idiotic. I know. You'd better hurry before I change my mind." She tripped getting into the tub. Draco reached out instinctively, catching her forearm. Even as they laughed, he noticed how soft and warm her skin was under his hand, and that she smelled of citrus and pear. She steadied herself against the wall. A strange heat pulsed in his palm as he let go. "All right, it's happening. Sit up straight. Say goodbye to the sleek, easy advertisement hair." "Unbelievable. Bossing me around like," he started, but forgot to finish, straightening on the tub's edge, still fighting laughter. Then he glanced into the bathroom mirror and saw their reflections. Hermione, unaware he was watching, lifted her hand toward his hair. But her fingertips hovered just an inch away, uncertain in the dim light. Her smile faded, and with it, the laughter stirring in Draco's chest. A look of confusion or curiosity crossed her face, like she'd only just realized she'd have to touch him to cut his hair. He held his breath, waiting. Slowly, carefully, she let her fingers slide into his hair. Her hand was warm, and as her fingertips moved over his scalp, lifting and gently tugging, her wand swept away pale blonde strands. Draco felt a strange rush of heat, then cold. A sensory confusion unlike anything before. Minute by minute, his hair took its usual shape, framing his face, rising over his high forehead, clipped close near his ears. Neither spoke. The silence seemed to grow louder. He became aware of her breathing, soft against the back of his head as she leaned closer. Her hands moved more tentatively now, as if she felt the change in the air. The tension pulled tight like a stretched wire. Time drifted oddly. Maybe an eternity passed. Or no time at all. Then she lowered her wand, pocketed it, finished. His hair looked exactly as usual. Apparently, her sharp memory extended even here. But she didn't speak. She stared down at the crown of his head, flushed and flustered, like she didn't understand what she'd just done. Suddenly, she looked up into the mirror and caught his gaze. Draco's mouth went dry. They froze. Her lips parted, her face still, eyes like autumn leaves. That curious confusion returned to her expression. He watched her hand rise in the mirror and softly lay on the back of his neck. His mouth opened a fraction. A breath escaped, clear in the tiny room. Her hand slid up past his ear, fingertips grazing his jawline, the corner of his mouth, brushing his cheek. There it rested, on his flushed face. Heat spread through him. His thoughts scattered. If he turned to face her, if he stood and touched her chin, her face. These things were possible right now. But then Hermione shook her head slightly, breaking the spell, and pulled her hand away. "It's done," she said quietly. The words shattered the silence. Draco felt suddenly unsteady, dizzy. He stood as she climbed out of the tub, wanting to say more than yeah, but couldn't. Hermione seemed to have forgotten her glass. She opened the bathroom door and moved into the dark hallway. Her face was half shadow, half light. She hesitated, maybe waiting for him to speak, studying him as if unsure who he was. But Draco thought she did know. She knew everything done to him, everything he'd done to others. She knew what hurt him, disturbed him. She knew his pain and his pride, his doubts and his strength. And he knew the same things about her. Her loyalty, impatience, righteous stubbornness, her venomous streak, her soft uncertainties, her exasperated sighs, the fears she hid, the crinkle between her eyebrows when she laughed. He knew how her fingertip felt on the corner of his lips. Somehow that changed everything. "Good night," she said, then she was gone. Draco woke the next day with a splitting headache. Hermione had been part of his dream, he was sure. He felt as if he'd woken with her already in his mind. What had they been doing last night? It seemed so childish, so insane. Their laughter, stumbling down the hall in the dark, hands brushing. Her fingers in his hair. Her hand tracing his face. The memory embarrassed him. He kept thinking of it as he splashed cold water on his face in the same bathroom where, just hours before, he couldn't stop looking at her. Hermione Granger. All books and stubborn opinions, no grace or subtlety. And him, Draco Malfoy, staring at her like she was. Like he was actually. It doesn't matter, he told himself, irritated. The natural conclusion, he'd been drunk out of control. That had to be it. He knew she was attracted to him. He'd known for a month now. And he enjoyed the feeling, the slight power of it. He'd played at flustering her. Stupid, but drunk. Meaningless. But when he came into the kitchen, Hermione stood at the stove. She glanced over her shoulder and met his eyes, and Draco felt a lurch in his chest. He felt her palm against his neck, her finger brushing his ear. He felt unsteady. He didn't know where to look. "Good morning," she said with a small, hesitant smile. "Morning." His voice sounded stiff. "Why?" A quiet moment passed, broken only by the sizzle of tomato in the pan. Color rose in her cheeks. It doesn't look bad," she said. Her voice was higher than usual. "Your hair. I was afraid I'd messed it up and didn't realize." "No." Draco tried to sound casual. "Yeah, it's fine." He realized he'd stopped mid-step in the doorway. He forced himself to move to the cabinets, opened their yellow-painted doors, and clattered plates and cups around more than needed. "Next time," he drawled. It's your hair on the line. Hermione laughed, relief in her voice. Sure, that'll go well. She turned the tomatoes and brushed hair from her face. Her cheeks still pink, her eyes focused on the food. Draco realized he'd paused again, watching her, hands halfway out of the cabinet. He didn't know what was happening. Was he still drunk? Morning, a bleary voice said. Draco and Hermione jumped and turned. Potter stood in the doorway, hangover personified. His hair stuck out in new wild directions. His glasses sat crooked. Hello, Hermione said too brightly. How are you feeling, Harry? Like someone hit me with a beater's bat. Potter's eyes passed over Draco, then did a double take. Wait, is your hair different? Between headache pulses, Draco said. Observant, aren't you? Hermione made a quiet sound. Potter's gaze shifted between them, an odd look on his face, but after a moment he said, All right. Well, I think that night off should last us a while, don't you? Draco and Hermione heartily agreed. The night had worked as intended. Their minds felt clearer. New plans formed for Umbridge. If they could confund a friend or family member, maybe they could arrange a meeting with her somewhere less guarded. They started taking notes from the wireless whenever Bathilda Bagshot was mentioned, slowly building a web of connections. Their reading pace quickened, and their attention to detail sharpened. Hermione had borrowed the life and lies of Albus Dumbledore, and one afternoon, while examining a letter Dumbledore had written to Grindelwald, she noticed that the in Albus was replaced with the same triangular mark found in the tales of Beetle the Bard. They puzzled over its meaning. Well, Potter said, first of all, it proves the mark definitely belongs to Grindelwald. It's not a coincidence, a rumor from Crumb, or some love-good conspiracy theory. Draco, who had also been reading the book, mulled it over. Learning that Dumbledore had thought like this was unsettling, but oddly reassuring. Dumbledore was real, with a real past and opinions. Not just the mild, doddering man he sometimes seemed. If he acted like he understood the Death Eaters, even Draco, it was because he'd once shared something with them all. I bet he and Grindelwald created the mark together, Draco said. Grindelwald removed, for the greater good, from that letter. I'd say the mark's theirs. That can't be right, Hermione frowned. Victor said Grindelwald carved it on a Durmstrang wall when he was a student, before the summer they met. Then it must have been something Grindelwald told Dumbledore about, Potter said, looking tense and irritable, as he always did when Dumbledore's past came up. I still think it's like a dark mark, used to recruit people. That's why Dumbledore signed the letter that way. A badge of loyalty. That still doesn't explain why Dumbledore left it in Beetle the Bard, Draco said. Silence fell. They sat on the rug amid cushions and scattered books. Harry picked up Wizarding Prisons and Rehabilitation Methods, one of Hermione's books, then put it down, frowning. They had read that Grindelwald was alive and imprisoned in Nurmengard, the fortress he built for dissenters during his reign. I have an idea, Potter said. Draco and Hermione exchanged wary looks. They'd privately warned each other about Potter's habit of obsessing over bad ideas. Harry, Hermione said quickly, we're not going to Nurmengard. Yeah, Draco agreed. No way. Even if we could find it. What? Potter blinked. I wasn't saying we'd go there. Oh, they said together, embarrassed. This exchange of looks was new since Halloween, and Draco wasn't sure what to make of it. He remembered earlier in the summer when he'd seen Hermione and Potter exchanging those looks, and thought it was dull and predictable, like people reading each other's minds. But from this side, it felt different, like a silent conversation, an inside joke. They hadn't spoken about Halloween night, but Draco felt Hermione watching him whenever he did chores or adjusted the wireless. He'd glance her way, and she'd pretend to read, but her cheeks would flush slightly, her face just a bit too calm. The night before, they'd passed each other in the narrow hallway, and both had stumbled over their steps. When he looked into her face, he felt again the ghost of her fingertips on his cheek. He wondered if she remembered it too, whether the memory caught her with a lurch before sleep or while sitting across from him at lunch. Did she regret it? It had lasted less than 5 seconds, and she hadn't mentioned it. But if it was a mistake, just a drunk instinct, why did she keep looking at him that way? Had she wanted to keep touching him? Had she even waited for him to do what he drunkenly imagined? Stand, turn, take her wrist? And did he want that? Draco felt like he was losing his mind. Maybe it was just being cooped up together too long. Yes, that must be it. Thoughts like these were inappropriate, especially for a Malfoy. The son of his parents, the ideal Slytherin. And she was distracting. Draco realized he'd been staring at Hermione's face for a long time. He didn't know how long. He looked away quickly. Potter watched them with his usual confused expression. Hermione cleared her throat and blushed. "Well," she said, "what was your idea then?" Potter gestured to the books. "I want to talk to Badhilda Bagshot. That old witch who told Skeeter all this?" Draco said, flicking through the Life and Lies with distaste. "You've got all that here already. Why bother?" "She might know more about Grindelwald than what's in the book," Harry insisted. "He was her nephew, right? And the symbol appears only when Grindelwald was a schoolboy." "I don't know," Hermione said. "Visiting someone so close to Dumbledore with Death Eaters patrolling Godric's Hollow is risky. It feels like visiting your parents' graves, Harry. Besides, Muriel said Badhilda was half mad." Potter grimaced but didn't reply. Draco looked down at the book again, and an idea struck him. "Skeeter," he murmured. "What?" Hermione asked. "Rita Skeeter. In 4th year, she told me and my friends she uses Veritaserum to get people to talk. She must have done it with Bagshot. The woman's nearly 140. If we could find Skeeter, we might learn everything she knows about Dumbledore and Grindelwald, even things left out of the book." Draco tapped the back page. "Here." He showed the others. "Tip-offs, fan mail, gifts, complaints, protests, lawsuits, and death threats can be owed to my assistant at this address. Titania Smethwick, Receiver's Box 320C, Office of Magical Postal Receipts. Number 48, Pimpit Lane, London." Hermione and Potter tensed. "Draco," Hermione said, "this is an idea. We just go to this address." "And wait for the assistant to check the box," Potter interrupted. "Then we follow her home. Skeeter's address will be there somewhere. If not, Hermione can use the Gillimancy." Hermione winced. "I'd rather not, but yes, if needed." "Let's do it tomorrow," Potter said. "Tomorrow?" Draco asked. "Yeah, why wait? This isn't Diagon Alley. It'll be simple. Here's the plan." Early the next morning, they uprod a block from number 48, Pinpit Lane. All three huddled under the invisibility cloak, disillusioned to hide their feet. Hermione led the way, with Draco and Harry close behind, so close that her hair brushed Draco's chin. He tried not to think about Halloween, or the way her hip kept touching him, her shoulder brushing his arm, or the height difference between them. He was distracted, and when they reached number 48, Hermione whispered, "Stop," pointing at the door. From a distance, it looked like a boarded-up frame, but as they stopped, the boards vanished. An elegant black oak door appeared, embossed with golden letters. Office of Magical Postal Receipts. They stepped back and waited for the workers to arrive. Soon, a witch in crisp violet robes unlocked the door, clutching a bundle of letters nearly blown away by the wind. Harry caught the door with his foot, and they slipped inside. They moved through a short, dark hallway and stopped abruptly. They had entered a vast space, as large as the Great Hall. The room was dominated by a huge system of funnels, tubes, and boxes. Dozens of owls flew overhead, hooting and screeching as they dropped letters and parcels into the funnels, which groaned and banged while swallowing even oversized packages. After recovering from the shock, the trio edged to the side. "Can you see box 320C?" Harry asked, peering through the silvery invisibility cloak. Hermione pointed left, toward a tangle of tubes leading to boxes labeled with large black numbers and letters. They sank to the floor and waited. More employees arrived over the next hour. On an upper level, sanitation wizards cycled overhead, cleaning with vanishing charms, umbrellas held above their heads to shield them from owl droppings. On the ground floor, robed witches and wizards wheeled carts filled with mail. One wizard levitated a parcel 4 times his size, shouting, "Out of the way! Priority order!" The place was chaotic, and this was before the patrons arrived, stopping up wooden steps to check their boxes and complaining when mail was damaged. "Well," Potter said, "at least we don't have to worry about being quiet." Time passed as they waited for Titania Smethwick. Draco watched a witch open box 317B, which looked tiny from outside, but held an entire room of neatly stacked letters inside. The witch levitated the letters into a wooden crate that a wizard wheeled away. Smethwick arrived mid-morning. She was a thin, mousy-haired witch who looked miserable, her hands bandaged. Draco remembered an article about Hermione in Witch Weekly from their 4th year. Someone had mailed her undiluted bubotuber pus. He guessed Rita Skeeter probably received a dozen such packages daily. The memory made him squeeze his fists, recalling how he had laughed with Pansy, Crabbe, and Goyle while Hermione fled the Great Hall in tears. They stood as Smethwick levitated the contents of Skeeter's receiver's box into a small crate she carried, wincing as she shifted her bandaged hands. Draco, Hermione, and Harry hurried after her. Just before the exit corridor, Hermione slipped her wand tip from beneath the cloak and whispered, "Confundo." Smethwick froze, a dazed look on her face, then resumed walking slowly. They followed her out, down a deserted alley, where she began looking around as if lost. Hermione drank from a vial of polyjuice potion and soon transformed into a small, dark-haired stranger. She stepped out from under the cloak. "Titania," she called. Smethwick jumped, alarmed. "Air," Hermione said. "It's me. Penelope Clearwater. You don't remember? Oh, it's all right. It was so long ago." She laughed lightly. Draco admired Hermione's acting skill, especially compared to how badly she could lie as herself. "I thought I recognized you," Hermione continued. "I had to speak to you. I read you're Rita Skeeter's assistant now. That's fantastic. I just finished reading her latest book." Draco nudged his wand out from the cloak, focusing on the thought of Titania welcoming Hermione for tea. The Confundo spell slipped invisibly into Smethwick's shoulder. "Penelope," Titania said, nodding now. "Lovely to see you. Do you have a moment? We could go to mine for tea." "That sounds lovely," Hermione beamed. Titania took her arm, and with a crack, they vanished. Less than a minute later, Hermione reappeared, clutching a slip of paper and holding Titania's robes. "Got it," she whispered, checking the alley's entrance. They pulled her back under the cloak and disapparated. They rematerialized on a quiet country lane. At the top of the lane, perched on a hill, stood a house extended in several flashy ways. A large new wing with glass walls showed a swimming pool inside. Above it hung a chandelier the size of a small elephant. Draco's lip curled in disdain. New money, he thought. Hermione took another flagon of polyjuice from her bag, added a hair from Titania Smethwick, and grimaced as she drank it. Moments later, she stepped onto the lane transformed, mousy-haired, pale, hands painfully swollen. She conjured bandages on her hands, then slipped behind a bush and emerged wearing Titania's robes. "Let's go," she whispered. Draco and Harry, cloaked, followed her to the house. She took a deep breath and rapped 3 times on the door. After a moment, the sound of many locks snapping echoed, and Rita Skeeter opened the door, her blonde hair in extravagant ringlets, one eyebrow raised high. "You couldn't have fled me, Titania dear," she said with a false smile. "I'm about to go tea." Her eyes fell, too late, to Hermione's wand. Hermione flicked it, and Rita's arms snapped to her sides, legs clapped together in the full body-bind curse. Draco and Harry hurried inside as Hermione levitated Rita through the door. They rushed through Skeeter's oddly decorated home, a simple house plastered with oversized, flashy art and expensive statues that looked more fitting for a French garden than a pine banister. Soon they reached the glass wing with the swimming pool Draco had seen. The pool glittered, steam rising from a smaller heated section at one end. Hermione set Rita down on a green velvet chaise by the pool, conjured a chair for herself, and sat nearby. "Hello, Rita," Hermione said, flicking her wand. Rita's face was freed from the jinx. "I have a few questions for you." Draco expected Rita to spit at Hermione or scream, but instead, her face went pale and drawn. She looked terrified. "Please," she gasped, "don't hurt me. Is it about the current project? I'll stop writing it, I swear it's only in the early stages. Or if you want a new angle, I can write whatever you need. You all loved the Dumbledore book, didn't you?" Draco saw surprise flash on Hermione's face, then understanding. "What's she talking about?" Potter whispered so quietly Draco barely heard. "She thinks Hermione's a Death Eater," Draco whispered back. Hermione quickly recovered. "I don't plan to hurt you," she said, trying to sound threatening. "Or Miss Smethwick either. As long as you tell me exactly what I need to know." "Of course," Rita said, her eyes wide. "Anything. I have nothing to hide. I'm a Slytherin. A half-blood. I swear." "In that case, you use Veritaserum on your interviewees, right?" Hermione asked, voice silkier than before. "It's less painful than legilimency or other methods." Harry grimaced. "She's good at that, isn't she?" Draco muttered. "I think she learned it from Yaxley at the Ministry." "Yes, it's in the wine cellar," Rita gabbled. "Far left, top corner. It's in a bottle that looks like mulled mead, 87. "Good." Hermione disapparated. The moment she was gone, Rita strained against the full body bind, her face twisting, eyes rolling as if seeking help, sweat beading on her brow. Draco felt a sinking mix of pity and disgust. Skeeter looked terrified of what would come next. He supposed this must have been how he'd looked those nights at the manor, welcoming the Dark Lord inside, ready to do anything to escape pain or death. There was no dignity in fear. Hermione reappeared with the bottle and a glass. Aguamendi, she said. When the glass filled, she added 3 drops of Veritaserum. The water glowed briefly, then returned to normal. Drink up, Hermione said, tilting the glass to Rita's lips. Rita drank, eyes fixed on Hermione with fear and hatred. But as she swallowed, her tension drained and her eyes went blank. All right, Rita, Hermione said, sitting back in her chair. Tell me when and how you interviewed Badhilda Bagshot. Badhilda is old and lonely, Rita said in a flat, emotionless voice. She lives alone in Godric's Hollow. When I visited her as a fellow writer, flattering her as a fan of her history books, she was delighted to invite me for tea and biscuits. Without her knowing, I dosed her with Veritaserum during 4-day-long interview sessions this March. I'd been working on the biography for a year and a half, but after Dumbledore's death, my work accelerated. Draco saw anger flash in Hermione's eyes, but she kept calm. Tell me everything Badhilda told you about Gellert Grindelwald. If Rita found the question strange, she showed no sign. She spoke kindly of her great-nephew, she said, voice blank. Badhilda picked Grindelwald up from an international apparition site the summer he turned 18. She described him as brilliant and surly, feeling misunderstood after being expelled from Durmstrang. He was handsome and charming when he chose. Within a day of arriving, Badhilda suggested he meet Albus down the street. She told Grindelwald about Dumbledore's achievements. Grindelwald was skeptical but impressed. Within 2 days, they were engrossed in each other. Their bond was almost certainly romantic. I left this out of the book because I thought it might soften readers toward Dumbledore's motives and distract from his choice to follow Grindelwald's ideals. Draco felt brief surprise, but Rita continued without pause. When Badhilda spoke with Grindelwald, it was mostly about Dumbledore. She described Grindelwald as more than smitten. Obsessed, even possessive. Grindelwald believed all of Dumbledore's troubles came from Muggle intrusion. He told Badhilda Dumbledore deserved better than a father in Azkaban and a dead mother. Badhilda saw him as misguided, but a protective friend and lover. To your knowledge, Hermione asked, did Grindelwald ever mention a mark shaped like a vertical line inside a circle inside a triangle? No, Rita said. I noticed a similar mark in a letter Dumbledore wrote to Grindelwald. I asked Badhilda, but she knew nothing about it. Hermione looked disappointed but pressed on. Did Badhilda know what Grindelwald and Dumbledore discussed? Did she overhear them? Yes. Badhilda sometimes paused outside Grindelwald's room, where he and Dumbledore spent much time. She heard talk of trips to wizarding outposts in Nairobi and Sydney. They discussed their ideal wizarding society. Grindelwald favored an absolutist system. Dumbledore preferred rule by multiple leaders. They enthusiastically spoke about magical objects and legends. Felix Felici's invisibility cloaks, the Philosopher's Stone, the Deathly Hallows, Hands of Glory, famous swords and wands. At wands, Draco felt Potter stiffen beside him. The Deathly Hallows? Hermione asked. What is that? Rita's eyes stayed blank. A legend of some kind. Badhilda described it as I just did, in a list of topics. I didn't research it. I left it out of the book because I thought it would make readers like Dumbledore too much. Of course you did, Hermione said sharply. You said famous wands. Did Badhilda ever discuss any with Grindelwald? Yes, Rita said. Badhilda adored both Dumbledore and her great-nephew. She was thrilled to find 2 young men interested in history. She relived several tea sessions with them in detail. Wand lore came up during the 3rd session. They pressed her about wands like the Death Stick, the Wand of Destiny, and the God Hammer, asking if they had identifying features or common traits, and about the lives of their owners. Badhilda reminded them of the lack of historical facts. Draco glanced at Potter, who stared wide-eyed ahead. Draco looked back at Rita's blank face. Surely this wasn't a coincidence. Surely this meant they'd guessed the reason for the Dark Lord's flight abroad. I left these discussions out of the book, Rita went on, because you thought they'd make readers like Dumbledore too much, Hermione finished, her voice sharp. Yes, I get it. Did you ever consider interviewing Grindelwald himself? Yes. He's imprisoned in Nurmengard, located in international waters and managed by several European magical governments. I wrote to the Finnish government, usually the most lenient, to request visitation but was denied. Hermione was silent for a moment. Then Hermione asked, Have you ever interacted with the senior undersecretary to the Minister of Magic, Dolores Umbridge? Rita replied, she and the minister sent me a complimentary card after my latest book's release. I keep it on my mantle. I've never met or spoken to her. Hermione stood up. Thank you for your cooperation, Ms. Skeeter. She pointed her wand at Rita's face. Even in her dazed state, Draco thought he saw fear in Rita's eyes. But Hermione simply said, "Obliviate." Rita's eyes rolled back, and she fell unconscious. Come on, Hermione whispered, hurrying toward the pool room's entrance. Draco and Harry followed. Once Rita was out of sight, they slipped from under the cloak. Harry hissed, "The wand." Hermione, the wand. Yes, I know. Hermione kept walking without pause. What are we doing? Why aren't we disapparating? Draco asked. They passed through the modern kitchen, the old pantry, and a huge portrait of Rita posing and smiling with her quick quotes quill. Hermione whispered, Umbridge. Remember, she said she was a fan at the ministry? If she sent fan mail to Rita, maybe there's a home address for the return. Good thinking, Potter said. There. He pointed to a room with a frieze-topped fireplace and a long gold table. They hurried over and sifted through cards praising Rita's wit and journalistic courage. It's here, Draco hissed, spotting Umbridge's handwriting. He grabbed the card but felt his heart sink. The return address is a ministry box. Damn, Potter whispered. Well, it was worth a try. Maybe we could. Hermione? Hermione was holding another card several feet away. She looked up, beaming. This is it. This is where we'll find her. Draco walked over. The parchment was midnight blue, with glittering snowflakes falling through silver script. It read, Dear Ms. Rita Skeeter, the Ministry of Magic is pleased to invite you as a media correspondent to the first annual Ministry of Magic Christmas Gala for the celebration of magical unity. Formal attire is required for entry. We regret that we cannot accommodate +1 invitations for media correspondents. The Christmas Gala will be held at 8 p.m. on December 23rd at Malfoy Manor.